I'm Cannon.
Hello, welcome.
Today we're going to be talking to writer Carmen Leal. Did I say that correctly?
Well, it takes a little practice, Leal.
And where are you from that you have this unusual last name?
Well, I just moved from Hawaii, which has nothing to do with Leal. My dad's from New Orleans, and he's Creole, and that's the name.
Very cool. But you lived in Hawaii.
I lived in Hawaii about 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you written, and tell us a little about your writing.
From start to finish, just sort of jump around. How do we do this?
Let's just jump around.
Yeah.
Like what got you into writing? When did you start and how did you start?
What I've noticed is there are writers who say, if I could not write, I could not breathe. It is my life to write. And then there are people like me who have something happen. And they either write, this is what I learned, I want you to learn from that. Or they might say, this is what I learned, don't do it. I mean, those are kind of what I've seen.
Those are the books I would write.
Exactly. In teaching at conferences throughout the country and several countries in the world, what I found are those kind of writers. I am a speaker who writes, and I wrote because of something awful that happened. My late husband died of a genetic brain disease called Huntington's disease, and I wrote the book that I wanted to read. There was nothing written about this from the family's point of view. It's a very rare disease. About 30,000 people at any given time have this disease in the country. So it's what we call an orphan disease. It's like having Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and paranoid schizophrenia all at once.
Wow.
If you
How did they even diagnose something like that?
Great question. David was his mother was adopted,
Okay.
didn't know she had that gene. And what the doctors do is they kind of choose the symptom that comes out first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they try to attack because there is no cure for this disease. It's basically, it's a genetic disease. It's a faulty gene. It is a 50% chance your kids will get it and their kids will get it. And it kind of goes on from there. And so they diagnose it usually incorrectly until the point where everything comes together and they go, oh. So for me, I wanted a book that told me how I should act as a caregiver, what my husband could expect, what could my children who were there, that was their stepdad, what could they expect? But there was nothing. You had little tiny little bits in Wikipedia or encyclopedias or doctor's books, and that was it.
So did you write this after he died?
No, I wrote it. I did exactly what people say you should not do. Never write in the midst, while you're grieving, while you're trying to get through it. Your emotions were too raw. That's when I wrote it. So it was probably the wrong time. But in some respects, it was the right time.
Because you got all that out.
Well, yes, and it wasn't my story. What I ended up doing is I'm a storyteller, first and foremost. So I interviewed about 60 people all over the country, in Spain and Canada and France and Africa, and I told their stories. And so I themed every chapter was, name of the book, Faces of Huntington's.
And where can you find that?
This one you will be able to find on Amazon, only ebook. We sold out, and I'm gonna probably do a revision, but right now it's an ebook. So Amazon.com, Faces of Huntington's, and that's that Leal Pak was my former name. So if you just look up Faces of Huntington's, I can run, but I can't hide. So what I ended up doing was saying, where do we find hope? Where's our faces of hope? Where's our faces of joy? Where's our faces of family? And I just told stories. So it's not my story exclusively, and we just wove them in and out. And yeah, it was kind of the first book of its type, and it was a kind of a runaway bestseller for considering how few people there were. I probably sold, in self-publishing, because when I self-publish, they say, if you can sell 1,000 books, you probably have a market. Well, it's way cheaper to get more books, your price per book.
Yeah.
And that always sounded really good until the big semi-truck backed up, beep, beep, beep. Oh my gosh, I had coffee table books and I had furniture moved out. Oh, there were so many books. And I thought, I will never sell them. I will never sell them all. And I wish I had those books.
Yeah.
I wish, because I actually made money on this book. And I believe that I helped people throughout the world, and that was my intent.
Now, was that your first book, your first attempt at writing?
That was my first attempt at writer. I never wanted to write. That was not my goal. And I kind of did it on a dare with God.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to write a book, but I will write one story. And I will get that one story published. And if it gets published, I will know I have to write a book. I broke every rule in publishing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't remove my markets. I wrote the world's worst cover letter. I got the person's name right, and that's about it. And I said, here is my story. It is about our family dog. I later found out this magazine doesn't publish stories about dogs or pets at all.
Yeah, that's bad.
I know it probably isn't any good and that you probably don't want it.
Oh,
But if you do want this story, please tell me when it will appear and how much you will pay me. I did not put in a self-addressed stamped envelope. And 2 weeks later, I got a check and a date. And I was so mad. I went, no, I don't want to write this book.
So you published a first story, and then it turned into a book?
Yes. Well, no, the story was an independent, just standalone story.
Okay.
And then I said, my gosh, I said I'd write a book. I guess I have to. And my son, who was in high school at the time, was in an audiovisual class.
Mm-hmm.
And he was learning how to do a website, because remember,
cool.
This is 1997.
Yeah.
Long time ago. And so for my birthday, he created my website. It was a lovely gift.
Nice.
And it was basically a one-pager with a few links, and it said, coming. May of 1998, Faces of Huntington's. And May is National Huntington's Disease Awareness Month. May was my birthday. I figured that's a good present for me. I said May 1st. That book actually came out on May 3rd was when the first copies went out. So I was right there.
Right on there.
Yeah, and it was also, I got to do a major conference. And, for authors, because my background is in sales and marketing, for authors, write what you know, but also write what you can sell. And because I was already set up to be a speaker at the National Huntington's Disease Foundation convention, which at that time probably had about, I don't know, maybe 10,000 people going, I kind of had a market.
Yeah.
So I timed it so that the publisher drop shipped my books. And for those who don't know, drop ship means instead of all of them coming to me, a portion go to the venue.
Yeah.
And I was able to set up a table. I gave a portion of the book sales to the charity, and that kind of launched it all.
Nice.
In terms of my writing.
So you have a unique point of view with writing, where you only write if you can imagine where it's going to go.
Absolutely.
Explain that.
So remember I said there are people who say, if I couldn't write, I couldn't breathe. They're going to write because they have something they want to write. I write because I have a market that will buy my product.
So that's that sales and marketing.
And that's my sales and marketing. And I don't dislike writing. I'm just not in love with writing.
So how do you start a project? I mean, how do you,
Well,
I know because I'm the one who has to write to breathe. And Tom, I think you are too. You
So
get all that
are
stuff
we
out.
talking books or are we talking articles?
Well, either one.
Okay, we're going to start with articles because
Okay.
I really believe that articles, nonfiction articles, still have a home.
Oh,
there are
there's a
still
huge
places, whereas books, the number of publishers are shrinking, the number of writers are growing. Anybody with a computer is automatically a writer. There's so much competition, but magazines write to a very specific market. And so the way I start is the Writer's Market Guide, the Christian Writer's Market Guide. I look at magazines, I look at websites.
So do you have the genesis of a story and then you kind of flesh it out and then try to find a place for it? Or do you find like a magazine you want to write for that interests you and then you...
I find a magazine that I want to write for. And I will look. For example, I probably have 10 stories in Chicken Soup for the Soul. So when I see, for that first story I wrote about pets, I have sold that story over and over because there are a lot of magazines that do, or book compilations. So I find the book, maybe it's going to be Chicken Soup for the Caregiver's Soul. And it's going to tell me the chapter outlines. It's going to say, we're going to talk about these 12 topics. Okay, I read that and I go, I know what I could write about. And I'm either going to take a story that I've already written and I'm going to kind of rewrite it and reslant it for that, or I'm going to start fresh. And then I'll submit it. So that's my philosophy, because I actually like to sell and I like to make money. I mean, most people are not J.K. Rowling, and they're not, you're not going to write to survive at a great level of income.
Yeah.
Right.
But you can earn money. And I actually, through this book, I supported my children and my dying husband with not a lot of other income. And I probably received from speaking fees and book sales and article sales over about a 5-year period, I probably earned about $45,000 to $50,000 a year.
Wow.
And that was a part-time job. That was not me going to work every day and doing it. But it was because I knew the market so well.
Yeah.
I knew how to reach those people, and I knew how to fly over to their conferences and speak and get a fee. I knew that if I talked to the conference people and I'd say, how much are you charging? And they would say, we're charging $50. And I'd say, if people will pay $50, they will pay $60. If you market it as with keynote speaker Carmen Leal, including an autographed copy of her book. All of a sudden, if you have 100 people there, I just now have $1,000.
Yeah.
And my cost per book, because my print run was so great, my cost per book, if I remember correctly, was something like $1.98 per copy. It retailed for $15, which was pretty industry standard back then for this kind of book. That's a ginormous profit margin.
Right, not to mention just word of mouth. I mean, word of mouth sells books.
Yeah.
So if you can get it in people's hands so that they can talk about it to other people.
Yeah. And it makes a huge difference. And, I probably sound really businesslike, and I only write, but honestly, my heart is in the topic I'm writing.
Right.
And when I get emails from people who say, your book saved my life. I was in on the beach in Waikiki, and I was singing at a church service. And afterwards, we're at our table with our books and CDs and whatnot. A woman came up. She had this book duct taped. I mean, you could barely see the cover. She came up and she said, oh my gosh, you're her. And she's crying. I'm like, okay, security. She said, my family has never not had Huntington's.
Oh, okay.
And we somehow got a copy of your book. She was from Scotland. And we tried to get others. What we did was we would read it, and then we would mail it throughout the country. And it would go around our family. And I would be so appreciative if you could give me 10 copies autographed so that I can take them back as gifts.
That's all the time we have for the Author Showcase. Thank you to Carmen Leal for all her valuable information. Thank you for watching the Author Showcase. If you'd like to know more about Dixie Jarco's or Tom Cannon's books, please look for us on social media and on Amazon. Remember to support your local author, and if you like their books, review them. It's very important.